My name's Chris. Is
And I'm Christy.
that's not
And
acceptable. You're Christy?
I'm Christy.
You're Christy.
No, I am
You're
Christy.
Christy. Okay. This is the Washing Up podcast. Christy is otherwise detained. She's flown away to a magical island for this week only. She will be back next week. I believe she's off summoning the Queen, as she does. You know, yes, the Queen has passed, but obviously Christy has a direct channel. If you've ever heard the Virgies, you know. So what I've done instead is I've gone and got the best two Stunt Kristies in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Great Australian Bake Off, we have Nurman and Aaron. How are we going, gentlemen?
Oh, we're all right.
We're all right, Nurman?
Roll.
Hello.
Roll.
It's a lovely occasion to get to chat to you fine gentlemen. You know, again, and I can't replace Christy with one. I need to replace Christy with two people. So
she's with the Big Plum, isn't she?
always with Big Plum.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Big Plum and Big Berry. Always.
Oh, big asparagus this week.
Real big asparagus and big dragon fruit. So
yeah.
Look, this format for everyone who's going to go, well, it's going to be a completely different sort of format because we're just going to chat. But I'm going to sort of jump around a little bit. I'm going to go to where the hell did this dragon fruit thing come from? Like,
I know where it's coming from.
Go.
Okay, so it's because of Lauren Coe from Local Kitchen. That's why there's a lot of dragon fruit.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
See, I just figured because it was like visually pretty and easy to cut into shapes.
I mean, probably that.
Yeah, that's that too, but she does a lot of things with dragon fruit.
Okay, so my second question is, where the hell did the asparagus come from? Because that's not pretty to look at.
I don't know.
Big asparagus.
Asparagus season. They must have had bought way too much of that. Now that's in the kitchen, and they're like, "You need to cook with asparagus. More cooking with asparagus,
no,
please."
What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean they bought? Like your Heather probably foraged all of it.
I have no doubt that.
Oh, that's true.
I have no doubt
that was from the garden. They grew way too much asparagus because they had to harvest all of that for the harvest week. Right?
Well, yes.
This week.
I mean, look.
Also, Harvest Week just sounds ominous as well. Like it's like, you know.
It was very much, and look, I was disquieted by the opening joke because it was only one patch of ground with soil on it, and Anne like hoeing, and it didn't come across as harvest, as in like crops and all those sorts of things. I was worried we were harvesting bodies.
Chris, can I just say, I thought that they remind me, Anne and Alan reminded me of Keith Brammer Jones from the Great Pottery Throwdown with the overall. So I thought they were actually harvesting clay to use for that.
Keith walks past and just starts crying.
I know, but like, clay.
But yeah, I don't know. What did anyone take anything else from that opening joke? I thought Anne was harvesting bodies.
Well, I feel like Alan was pontificating on the Canadian American dream.
It did feel like that.
Yeah.
We were half a step away from a Canadian Gothic photo.
They could have done that.
Oh, it would have been fantastic. I'm assuming it'll come up somewhere on socials at some point. If they didn't do it, what are you doing, guys? Come on. Or Bert and Ernie's interpretation.
Oh, Bert and Ernie.
A great photo. It's a great image. I love that one. So I love that we also got the start of Harvest Week and we found out that Camilla doesn't like vegetables, which was a trope that was played all the way through her baking with vegetables.
Yeah, no, she hates leaves.
Yeah, now I've got it later on, but I'm going to bring it up now. Why did Alan decide to defend leafy greens with kale? It's not my
Nurman, I'll pass
to
you on this one.
Yeah, it's not my first port of call.
I love kale though.
Yeah, but it's okay. So you both know I'm very particular about when I will eat kale, and it's crisped up with garlic and chili on it in an oven. That's it.
Yes.
I won't have kale any other time. I really don't like it. Broccoli, yeah, broccoli was right there. Like, it's forward thinking. But no, we led with the kale, which is divisive. It's a divisive food, that one.
I'm a kale stan.
Yes, I would
Put it
expect.
in everything. Focaccia.
You have brunches.
Hmm?
You have brunch. Of course you're a
Yeah,
kale.
I do have brunch.
You're a
And I'll
kale.
put
I
it in
love
smoothie
love a
too.
brunch.
Yeah, exactly. You're a kale stand because you do brunch. Simple.
Yes. I can't help it that I'm a brunch fan.
So it's a really interesting question to start with then. Are there any vegetables that either of you don't like? Or at the very least would definitely go, you can't use that really in a bake?
Oh, something like beans, like green beans. I wouldn't use those in like in a bake, no.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I don't know if I'd use green beans. I don't think you can use. I love green beans, but I don't think you can use them in a bake.
I think a lot of Asian vegetables. Bitter melon or bitter gourd.
Yep.
There's also the kangkong.
Mhm.
That gets really stringy when you cook it, and it's not a really nice texture in a bake.
It's probably, you're right. Probably the Asian greens are probably a bit harder to work into baking.
Yeah.
Spinach is another one because it's just so boring.
But as you saw, you can work it into things, and you can bake a spinach loaf, and you can have, as you saw with Andrew, he did spinach in there. It's boring, but you can do it.
But if you can use kale instead of spinach, why wouldn't you?
Because I
Why would you?
Yeah. Are we crisping it up? Are we covering it in garlic and chili? We're not. I don't want it. I don't want it. All right, just don't.
Yeah, okay.
So, all right, a vegetable forward P day, which is code for we really want to make P day, but we need to work it somewhere. Why not in harvest week? So, an hour 45 to make 8 of them. Now we were talking when we were watching the episode, and I think the comment from everyone was the one thing I hate about P day challenges is that it then makes you want P day.
Yeah, no, I want to make pita.
Yeah.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. And yeah, I've seen it in other versions of Bake Off. P day appears on. Now I really need P day. So Heather talked about, we cut to Heather. And Heather got a lot of this because obviously foraging's her thing. Now she talked about the importance of the harvest to her family. And all I could think about was when you are living that apocalypse life, the harvest is vital.
When the harvest comes.
Well, we've seen over the past couple of weeks that, every time we talk about growing something, Heather's like, oh yeah, I grew these ones myself, or I grew this myself, or I grew, and even in like today's episode, when we get to her showstopper, she's like, yeah, I grew all this myself, and I grow these, and
Yeah, and then she goes and
I
forgets.
associate the word harvest with a different type of harvest. Like, sorry, this is where my dark mind is going, but harvesting organs.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like,
Oh my god. Well, yeah, no, like if she's surviving the apocalypse, she's doing it somehow.
Yeah.
But then later on, she forgets to put the salt in because she can't grow that.
I just thought it was because salt is currency.
Yes, after the harvest, salt is currency.
You don't want to hand over the currency. Like, she didn't forget the salt. She banked it. What we're doing is banking right now.
It's stockpiling.
Yeah. So
Prepping.
yeah, it's
maybe she need to have the grater for the salt, because it's a salt.
Like, how are you going to preserve things when nothing works anymore? No electricity. You got to preserve stuff. Ta-da! So she went with butternut squash, roasted apples, and toasted hazelnuts. And this is where she mentioned that she forages her own hazelnuts. Of course she does.
Of course she does. Wild. I didn't think you could forage hazelnuts. I thought they just appeared at shops.
They just turn up.
They just turn up. Like nobody orders them. They're just on the shelf.
I kind of really like the combo, the butternut squash, the roasted apples. Like I think butternut squash, butternut pumpkin, deeply underrated. its ability to take on flavors is really good too. It gives a good flavor, but it takes on flavors really well.
Mm.
So I like that in a bake.
Well, yeah, because it's got a good
Would
sweetness, so
the
it'd go
apple
with the
make it
apple.
soggy?
Yeah.
Well, it depends how you use it.
Mm. I
Like
mean,
if it's just a bit of a grating in there, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
sweetness.
so I'm going to hand the Kathy cut over to Aaron because I want him to attempt this.
You mean the peppy pepper pide plus purple pickle and pumpkin pesto pide?
Oh, well done. Oh, well done. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for that one. Yeah, I loved the pumpkin pesto and then the Nigella seeds, which didn't start with a P and therefore were utterly.
I know it should have been poppy, poppy seeds instead of
Now-
No,
chip
you need to pass the drug test later. You can't do poppy seeds.
Can't do poppy seeds, but Nurman on the other hand.
Please, alliteration.
So for Kathy, Nurman, this is your sort of bake in a way.
Yes, this is.
So just explain for people who don't know what you've been doing a lot on socials.
So yeah, I've been doing baking with the alphabets, or baking through the alphabets, and just doing a bake that starts with a certain letter, with ingredients not all ingredients, the important ingredients with the letter that it starts with. So yeah,
This is
P.
very Nurman bake. Like
I got to 40 something with P, I think.
yeah, that was overkill. But like if this had appeared on your Insta, I would have just gone, yep, that's cool. That's a Nurman bake. That's a Nurman bake. And I saw this, and my first thought was, because I knew you were doing this. My first thought when I saw this pop up is, oh, Nurman's gonna love this.
Yes.
Nurman's
did
gonna
love
love this. And a bit of a spoiler, and Kathy, if you're listening, and I know you are, not the first time that Nurman's going to profess that he really loves something you've done. Wait till we get to the showstopper. But yeah, I really, again, I like the idea of the capsicum and the pumpkin pesto and the Nigella. Like it's again just a really cool combo. And like also hearing that Kathy grew up on a farm.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, does Harvest Week disadvantage people who, live in the suburbs?
I mean, it's an interesting conversation. Are you disadvantaged in Harvest Week if you've never harvested?
But then that reminded me of the first place I lived out of home. I was living with circus performers. That's not a joke or a euphemism. And they would forage fruit from local front yards.
So they
Like,
were urban scrumping.
urban scrumping. Yes, like locusts for some reason. Feijoas were in my area.
Okay,
Like it might be like Melbourne suburb feijoas.
Let's cut back for a minute. Locusts. So the first time I've only ever had them when someone has urban foraged them. And my father was the first one. We were walking through Circular Quay when I was about 8, and there was a tree over the backyard. He goes, "Oh, they're locusts." I went, "What are they?" And he goes, reached up, pulled a bunch of them down, and here you go. They're absolutely. I love locusts, but like I've only ever had them when someone's urban scrumped.
You say locust, as in like the apocalypse locust?
No, locusts.
Yeah, locusts.
So it's like a fruit.
Yeah. Small fruit about that size. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay, like kumquat sort of.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of vibe.
I thought you were talking about locust, and yeah.
No, that's in
not yet.
That's later on.
I wasn't really thinking that.
But yeah, no, but I love that. That's an old Bill Bailey joke about when it talks about scrumping. When they're growing up in England and they scrump, which is you go and take apples from the orchard. And he's like, you don't hear about urban scrumping. That's just theft. So Camilla, we cut to Camilla to talk about vegetables and more importantly how she hates them all. But
Green vegetables.
what I appreciated was the way that she got around it was very clever. So she's like, I like onions, so I'm gonna pick onion. How do I make this taste good? I'm just gonna make the whole thing taste like it's a French onion soup. And in this, the pide is basically a giant crouton. Like it's the crouton top. basically. What she's done is she's basically served an inverted French onion soup. You've got the onions on top. I was thinking about this while it was happening. You've got the onions on top, then you've got the Gruyere and the mozzarella, so then you've got your cheese layer, and then you've got the bread as the base. It's an
Like when you go
inverted
to
French
a
onion.
when you go to like one of those food marketplaces and they serve you the soup in like a hollowed out cob loaf.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, this is an inverted French onion soup where the croûte is actually the entirety of the base, and the topping is the French onion.
Wait. If with that, what you said earlier, Aaron, with the cob loaf and stuff, there was someone else who did something similar.
Yes, Andrew. We'll get to that.
Andrew with the spinach and artichoke dip.
Oh
That's very
yes.
cob loaf.
It was very cob. He basically, and look, I can hear Christy at her island retreat. I can hear her right now. Her ears pricked up at the words cob loaf. So loves a cob. So, but yeah, it was very much the sort of that vibe, very cob loaf vibe. Also, Niv has learned in her time in the shed, because this is where we cut to Niv, who's telling the camera straight down the barrel, I want these burned. It's part of the flavor. Just
Yeah,
so
that's right.
there's-
Cover your ass, Div.
looks at
Cover your
everyone and
bases.
goes, no, this is what I'm doing. I'm burning this. So this was an ode to her husband's favorite dish.
I think
It's
kashke badamjan.
yeah, kashke badamjan. I was literally trying to work out how to pronounce it properly. I didn't want to fuck it up. Kashke badamjan. So roasted eggplant, pomegranate, and caramelized onion. And as she said, in Persian cooking, you just kind of throw everything in together and it works out.
That's most of my cooking as well.
That's very much like a lot of cuisines are sort of
It's
like
all
that.
it's all cooking.
Beef rendang. That's
Yeah.
that's what you do.
Like I've spoken to both of you before about I did it this week. It's on the washing up social media, everybody. The buffalo mozzarella lasagna, the long cook sauce. I throw everything into there, and like I don't have it written down. When I do that sauce, I know roughly what goes in there. I make the quantities up as I go. I throw it all in there, and it works.
Yeah, no, baking, like I measure my ingredients and stuff, but when it comes to cooking, I'm just like, yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, that'll do is a great measurement for cooking, and it's one of the reasons why
And baking.
when people you do it for baking, everyone else measures really intensely for baking. Nurman's just like, yeah, whatever. But it's one of those things where when people say that cooking's not for them because it's so precise, I find that really funny, because I'm like, cooking's not precise. It's basic meals and stuff like that. Throw stuff in, taste it. Does it taste good? If yes, you're on the right track. If not, find something else you think might make it taste a bit better. Adjust it. Balance it. Usually
I
salt.
like. There was that thing. I think it was Adam Liao, who did it, where you sort of think about the two flavor profiles, balance that first, and then add the third one.
Yeah.
And it's whenever and you hear that sort of thing as well on like a bunch of the food shows that are on, like, for obviously, because most of the audience is Canadian. Things like when you look at Ugly Delicious, for example, when he's going around and testing and Dave Cheng's going into all the restaurants and stuff like that, he talks a lot about that balance. And they pick one profile and then they add another one into it, and then they might add a third one into it just to do that triangle or balance it all out. But it's pick your profile and go for it. Like, and that's to go back briefly to what we said before about Camilla. Camilla, the smart thing that Camilla did in this, and something that wasn't her strength, was picked a flavor profile and went and was like, I'm not screwing around. I'm just picking my profile and I'm going for it. And
yeah, find a flavor that you're familiar with, you're comfortable with, and make it work. Because like Kyla was worried, like, oh, but it's gonna be soup. It's like it's gonna evoke soup.
But we've had that as well. Like, what was the one the other week where it was the same thing? I think it was Camilla again. And
the cornbread.
Yeah, the cornbread.
Oh, that was that with the chili. Was that Candace?
It was Camilla.
No, it was Camilla, I think.
Yeah. And she's like, but it's chili. And Camilla's like, it's a dry chili. It'll work. And again, I thought that was genius when she did that with the chili, because your entire meal in one. There's your chili, there's your cornbread. Sorted. Fantastic.
Easy.
Yeah,
There's your soup, there's your crouton.
exactly. There's your soup, your crouton, your cheese. You're set. You can carry it around. You can carry your soup wherever you want to go.
It's just a hot pocket.
Okay. So we'll cut to Candace, who was doing a tarragon-based flatbread for a start. And then roasted asparagus, and then asparagus and fennel salad with ricotta and lemon. Well, I thought there were a lot of different flavors happening here. The judges seemed to like what she did. It seemed like the fennel saved it. Like,
yeah, that was the impression I got during the judging, is that like the sort of, because I'm assuming it was fresh, or it was maybe like quick pickled or something. I can't quite remember. But like that flavor sort of, I don't know, lifting up the asparagus, so that with the lemon or what have you.
I'm trying to figure out how the flavors work,
yeah,
and my brain has not managed to compute it.
the
In
ricotta.
my brain, I was sort of thinking fennel is very aniseed sort of flavor.
Yeah.
And then the tarragon has got that little bit of sharpness
Mhm.
that my brain doesn't really connect with the aniseed profile. But I'm curious to know.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I'm really liking. That's what I'm really liking about Canadian, is that a lot of these bakers come up with flavor profiles that in my head, like I didn't think to compute these together, to put these together, but for them it works.
And that's the thing, is that, and we've seen it more often than not this series, where like you're not seeing outlandish ideas, Kathy excluded, and we'll talk more about that because they're working. But you don't see outlandish ideas, but you just see things that you pause for half a second and go, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yeah, it's just it's a hot take.
Yeah, it's well, not even a hot take. It's a warmish take. It's because you're not even stopped by it. It's like, that's intriguing, and then you move on, and then when they get to the judging and they taste it, you're like, yeah, maybe I can actually see how that might work. I mean, I still don't. I'm interested by this one. I think you're right, Nurman. I think the tarragon is an interesting twist on this bit. The ricotta and the asparagus and the fennel and the tarragon and the lemon seems like it's doing a lot of jumping, but I don't know.
Lemon fennel, lemon tarragon, they work well together.
Yep.
So I mean, it's possible.
And it probably fills in the flavor of the asparagus a bit and takes over. So, you know, because asparagus doesn't carry massive flavor through everything. It takes a lot more. So, yeah, I suppose.
It's a vehicle vegetable.
Yeah. Talking about vehicle, Loic and the mushroom and asparagus. Because again, mushroom, asparagus, they're canvas, vehicle. I'm curious to know like what other flavors are in those ones.
Well, yeah, there must have been herbs or something to really brighten them, because mushrooms, they just take on whatever you put with them, and halloumi again is one of those things that on its own.
Sponge.
Yeah.
Well, he said there were 3 different types of wild mushrooms. 3 different types of mushrooms: asparagus and halloumi. Yeah, like it, and the egg on top. Yeah, it's very sponge. There must have been something else in there that was doing something.
Probably how he cooked them, because mushrooms, they've got a nice earthiness to them. You cook them well, and they're delicious and fragrant.
If you get that saute on the mushroom as well. So
Loic, was it time? I'm just asking him. My guess is that it was time.
But he was finished early.
Look, he definitely had a lot of time. He had a lot of time to make braids, which he said, which much like Loic, he said are both cute and fancy.
Yes. And then when I might not be the best, but I'm the fastest. As we know what the aim for Bake Off is. It's all about fastest.
A question. If you would remove one thing from his bake, because I mean, like Coco Chanel said, when you walk out of
remove one item.
House, remove one thing. What would you remove from this bake?
Asparagus.
I'd remove the deep fried element from the poached eggs. Poached eggs on their own, or having an egg, cracking an egg as you bake them, sure. But I don't necessarily like. I was surprised he had the time, to deep fry a poached egg.
It was, but what was really interesting, the deep fried poached eggs were they were evoking Scotch egg without being a Scotch egg.
Yes.
I would remove the plated dough on the side of it.
Oh yeah, the plated dough was showing off, and not in a bad way. It was just showing off. And,
But I wonder while he was doing that, because I mean they said that the dough was slightly overproofed while he was
that
doing
might have been
that.
where it was overproofed because it was waiting.
Yeah.
It's actually really interesting a couple of times. One of the things that I've I found with Loic in this episode, and it's not a criticism of Loic. It's actually something that I think maybe we don't think about enough, is that there is such a thing as being too fast with the way you're doing it. So what you see is that if he's going too fast and then it's sitting around for a while, it's not coming out at the same point as everyone else's in terms of it's got to go in earlier so it comes out earlier, or it's sitting around more. And as you know, especially with doughs, if you're leaving it with a dough, the compound and structure of that dough is changing, especially in what looked like an incredibly warm environment. That pavilion looked very hot. And so I wonder.
Yeah, everyone was sweating.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe because he was fast in terms of the way he did that and then sort of had to sit around for a bit and do other bits, if maybe being too fast worked against him, because it changed the way the bakes came out at the end. And again, if it was a more temperate environment, or if it's his own kitchen, it's not.
Yeah, like, if I'm making sourdough on a weekend, sometimes it takes 3.5 hours, sometimes it takes over 6. It just depends on the weather. And so if he's just, if the dough's doing its proof, he's already shaped it and everything, but it's doing a proof, and he's waiting to attach a braid or to put things into the oven because it looked like they were doing it in batches, then that's going to happen. That's just normal.
And we'll talk about it a bit more when we get to the showstopper. We'll talk about it a bit more too. But I think we saw that in the showstopper with everybody, with the tarts, because like they were getting on people a little bit about those tarts not being set 100%. I'm just like, it's really hot. Like
It's probably the butter in curd and pastry cream.
So we'll get through the rest of this first. So Andrew did this is where he did his caraway seed bread, and he made the cob loaf in a pita. Spinach and artichoke dip with the jalapeno and parmesan crumb. And when they said to him is that going to be a bit warm? And he's like, I took the seeds out of the jalapenos. I would have been a prick. But
look, I would do the same. I wouldn't take out the seeds.
You want a bit of a punch. And
yes, and again, as I said earlier, spinach is a bit vanilla. It's a bit boring. So
I mean, artichokes
in terms of flavors,
artichoke's not necessarily what you'd call like, something that's a glamorous vegetable. There's no glamour in an artichoke.
No, but there's a subtle suburban glamour to a cob loaf.
Oh, there's
like if you're at a house party and there's a cob loaf,
oh, you're a king.
You are at a good house party.
If you turn up to a house party and you've brought the cob, you are a king among men.
Yeah,
like 100%.
So I would like to go. I would like to have Andrew's cob loaf pide, please.
Now, we have people. We have people over. I make a cob, or I make the cob dip, and I get a couple of big French sticks, and we just dip like that instead.
Let me say this. I'm not saying that his pides are boring. I'm saying that spinach.
Oh no, we know. I'm sure.
Yeah. No. This is not a judgment of Andrew. It's a judgment of spinach.
Yeah. You're judging leafy greens, and right now, you know what? You might be here worried about the way that you're judging leafy greens. Meanwhile, Camilla is got her hand in the air listening to this episode in solidarity. Right now, she's just punching the air in solidarity, going, down with leafy greens. Down with It's very much a protest movement at this time. I'm looking forward to seeing her out protesting somewhere in Canada just against leafy greens. Now, speaking of Camilla, my favorite quote in this whole first bake was when they cut back to Camilla at her bench and she's shaping them. And Alan goes, "So does the shape of the boat add to the mystique of the bake?" And Camilla's like, "I don't know." And then paused and went, "Tradition."
Tradition.
The
number of bakes that are funny shapes purely because tradition.
Yeah. But it was just the way he's asking, did the shape of the boats add? And she's like, tradition?
Tradition.
What I was concerned, so the last two things about this one before we get to the judging, I was concerned, and like Niv talked about it, but when she was making hers, I looked at them and went, they're really big. And that was, I was worried about the baking time when we looked at them before she went, I'm having to do these in shifts, and then they're not baked through. And again, the benefit that I've had with this obviously is that, in the last series of Australian, there were P-Days. So we got to see that. So I'm a bit more recent with that. Not that I'm an expert at P-Day, but you've just seen it more recently. But I was worried about the cooking time for her because they were massive.
Yeah. That's the thing with any kind of flatbread, pizza, anything like that. Obviously, because you've got a filling as well, and that's going to stop. Like if it's even a little bit too wet, it's going to stop you from getting all of the cook that you want to get done, especially in the time allowed.
There's a reason why Pizza Hut restrict you to 8 toppings on most pizzas. If you ever been
with
custom,
the
Just got none pizza with left beef.
What? I missed that completely.
We'll explain it later, though, but it's an internet joke.
With vegetables, I mean, vegetables tend to have higher water content anyway. Whereas if you make pita with meat in it, you can actually do a little bit more or get rid of the liquid.
Yeah, for example, if you were using, I don't know, let's pick something at random, spinach.
Spinach.
Look, I like putting spinach in things, but I hate the fact that you've got to get that water out of it. It's just a nightmare because it's all water. It's all.
Yeah. Like when you get the bag of spinach and you're like, wow, what volume? You start cooking with it and it's like, wow, not volume.
Wow, a teaspoon.
I'm going to confess, I've not bought or cooked anything with spinach for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I can confirm to you, Nurman, if you go to the shop and you get a big bag of spinach and you put it in the pan thinking you've got a lot of spinach, you've got no spinach.
No, it's very, wow, you got that much juice from one bag of oranges?
Yeah. 1-900-Doctor, the B is for bargain. Anyway.
The B is for bargain.
And there's going to be a lot coming up, everyone. I'll just specify. There's going to be a lot of Aaron and I making Simpsons jokes and Nurman going, sure.
Yes.
The last bit of this is like poaching eggs. But the fact that he was poaching the eggs in what I can only refer to as silicon boats. Now, I know, as you know, I watch a lot of Sorted Food, and all I could hear was Ben Eberl from Sorted Food yelling, "You don't need to poach an egg in anything, just put it in the damn water."
But if you want to do multiple eggs, though, because he had to do at least 4.
Yeah, that's right. Like this would just be a security thing.
And I think it was also more because he wanted the specific shape.
Yeah.
Like he wanted that specific shape to then do the cut. And look, they looked really cool.
Oh, they looked good. And like I was saying before, get rid of the crumbing. But what the decadence of a deep fried poached egg, if I'm having brunch and there's a deep fried poached egg involved, I'm living like a king.
See, what I possibly would have done, because I would have gone overboard. I would have what Kristen and I refer to as floring it. Which Loic does, which is like Flora from the Great British Bake Off a couple of seasons ago, who had to make 8 items to go with the 1 item she was supposed to make. I would have then done a version of a Scotch egg, but what I would have done would have been I would have held back some of the mushroom mixture, and I would have done
make like a duxelle.
Yeah, duxelle around the outside,
yeah.
crumb fry, and the egg with the duxelle and the crumb. I would have done that.
I would have done. I think I would have done onsen egg with sous vide.
That would have been good.
Sous vide, let it go for however long, and then just crack it on top.
What I did like, by the way, in this challenge was everybody, every time Lug did something, everybody else just looked and went, how does he have that much time? Like, and Kathy just kept on looking at him and going, how does that boy, and like, how does he have time? And then they cut over to Niv, and Niv's like, where does that boy get the time from? I don't know where he's getting the time. Like,
He's got
everyone was-
Hermione's little thing. You know, the thing that you spin.
So the judging. So Heather, I said the color was gorgeous. It had a really good chewiness to it. The squash and the apple married really well together. Camilla's looked really good, and then Kyla just laughed and went, it tastes like onion soup. Niv's well shaped, great color on two of them. The rest of them were a bit light. The filling was unique and complex, and Bruno really liked it, just needed more of a bake. Andrews said that it was they said Andrews was an even bake, very tasty, a good kick of chili. What I really appreciated though from Kyla was where she said that you needed the chili, because if you didn't have the chili, the whole thing was just a bit, yeah, it's there, it's fine, but the chili gave it a bit more of a punch. When we were talking about the fact with Andrews, you had 3 things in there that are all basically a nil flavor. That chili really gave it something. Like they said, it looked lovely, but also looked like it had rested for far too long, which is what we talked about. And the filling, however, was cooked perfectly. They loved his mushrooms. Kathy's pleasant to the eyes, even bake. The flavor was bang on. And they said that the peppers melted really nicely with the tomato as well that she had in there.
I just think it was a letdown that their feedback also wasn't alliteration.
It should have 100%.
They should have.
Just been.
The perfect piquancy of the peppers.
Yep.
Purifies the pungent pumpkin pesto.
With the pickle on top, the pickle protruding from the point. And Candace, they said playing with the green coloring was nice. The different vegetables, rich, delicious, and the shaved fennel contrasted everything really well. Which takes
there was a lot of comment on inconsistency for quite a few of the bakers.
Well, but that was the thing. Like, and I think part of that comes down to the fact that with that signature, you're shift baking, so you can't put it once. So you're going to get an inconsistency. It's very hard to get that.
And it's like, well, they had an hour 45.
Yep.
Because I'm assuming that most, if not all of them, would have done like a yeasted dough, so it would have been quite tricky to get like everything correct and done in the time, unless you're Loic.
Especially with the heat as well.
Yeah, and like I said, we talked about with Loic, but it would have been true for everybody to some extent, probably a little bit more for Loic, but everyone would have had one batch that were ready to go, waiting to get into the oven. So you would have had that second batch would have been different to the first batch, and just the way the shifts would have worked. Everyone's would have been slightly different going in, and you're not going to get the same texture. And then also, if you get at any point in time had a hold up, your first ones you'll naturally bake your first ones longer to make sure you get the golden brown. But as a result, you're probably baking your second ones until they go 10 seconds. And then pulling them out and frantically throwing them. Now, the technical. So the technical, 1,000-layer mooncake. So Chinese puff pastry filled with taro paste. It had 2 hours and 50 minutes to make this. Now, a couple of things about just the general bake before we get into the whole thing. First of all, did anyone else notice that Andrew started nodding immediately? They're like, mooncakes, and Andrew's like, yes, I know what these are. Andrew was thoroughly excited.
Although, was he thinking of the normal mooncake, not the 1,000?
Not the like this, yeah.
Because there are so many. Like there are a few different types of mooncake. There's the one that's brown on the surface, which is like the normal one, and then you've got the the snow mooncake, and then you've got this one.
Well, the one that most people have seen, because again, and Heather talked about it. She goes, "Like I saw a mooncake in a video game once," and
and that just reminded me of like in The Sims, like the most top tier thing that you can cook in The Sims is a bomb Alaska.
Yes, very bake off. But yeah, like Heather saying, I saw a mooncake in a video game once. I'm like, yeah, most people have just seen them in like video games across the board because Nintendo make most of them. So
And there were some bakers. Sorry, there were some bakers last year. I think like maybe Chi or Lauren who would have done moon. I think did
yes,
mooncakes throughout the series.
yes. And so before we get into what sort of happened, Bruno cuts over to his one. So they're talking about, I saw it in a video game. We go to Bruno's and they look like they've just come out of a video game.
Yeah, they look like a power up in like Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, white and purple doughs, both of them are lard based. Only one of them uses water.
Yes, so that pastry I'm familiar with.
Yep.
Essentially, both of them will have some form of fat. One of them has got more fat content than the other one. So the one with the water, we tend to call it the water dough, and then the other one is the oil dough. And the idea is that you envelope one with the other one, and you roll it. So it's the same one that we use for curry puff, in Southeast Asia, except for the curry puff one, you actually deep fry it, not bake it.
What I really appreciated too is, of course, we're talking about a water dough and a non-water dough. So it makes it sound like, again, from the video game aspect, makes it sound like a video game thing too. It's the water dough over here. We've got the non-water dough over here.
You've got to bring the water dough and the non-water dough to the same location. You've got to get them
Yes.
to the old man with the hood so that he
Yes.
can give you the next side quest.
And then you get your power up off the back of the side quest.
Usually,
And the power up is the salted duck egg.
Synergy. So
Synergy.
now the other thing I wanted to ask both of you about, because I joke a lot about this with I've joked a lot about this with Polynesia. I've taught a lot of Polynesian students who love the ingredient we're about to talk about, and I always make a joke that it's a chair leg. Taro as an ingredient.
Yes.
What do we
Yeah,
think? Yeah.
Love.
I'm a fan.
So I loved it because it did look a little bit like when they all started with the taro, it did look like they were planing it down to make some form of furniture.
Yeah. Yeah. It really did.
I do wonder whether, because I mean they had to steam the taro and then they added this purple powder.
Yep.
I wonder whether the purple powder was actually not taro.
Ube?
I actually wonder whether it was actually ube or yam.
I
purple
thought
powder.
I thought it might have been ube, but there was no mention of it. But I thought when I saw that purple powder, I thought ube.
Yep.
Yeah, entirely possible. Like, yeah, that would make sense because, like, I've seen purple sweet potato powder and it is vibrant.
Yes. I have
Yeah.
I have a Filipino friend who makes really good ube desserts.
Ube halaya. Yum.
It's nothing. And again, I love walking in to see my dessert as being a vibrant purple. I'm a big fan of this. So, watching them work the dough was quite amusing because even the ones who had sort of knew what was going on were a bit confused about how to work both levels. Like Andrew, for example, with the white dough, like, I don't know how long I'm working this. I'm just working this until I think it's done. And like Niv was just like, I've done this and that'll do. On to the next one. And then, of course, with the purple one, the way they described it, and you sort of mentioned it here, Nurman, more of a paste than like a dough.
Yeah.
So then they're trying to work, well, do I overwork this one? How much do I work this one? If you overwork it, you're going to have issues with that. So I really liked the challenge because it's same dough, but different things.
Yeah, it's almost like the purple dough kind of played the same part that like a butter would play if you were doing like a puff pastry.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. It's really interesting actually because I mean from science point of view, if you've got fat, it tends to inhibit gluten
Yeah.
formation. So that's why you actually have to work it quite a bit when you've got a lot of lard in it.
Yeah.
Again, and we don't see enough lard-based bakes either.
We see too many. I think we see too many. I'm not a fan.
What? Look, it's okay. So I do have to say that my favorite feedback I've got from any baker on any bake that's ever happened in Bake Off is season 3 of Australian and Monica talking about the smell of the shed when the sfogliatelli happened.
Actually, these kind of gave off a sfogliatelli
They
vibe,
did.
especially when they have to slice it, and then that's how they were filling them.
Yeah. So I thought it was brilliant because, like, you've got this, like, again, when the layers all came out, it looked for me like a flipped sfogliatelli rather than the things on the layers on the side. The layers were coming upwards instead. But a very purple sfogliatelli, and a sfogliatelli containing a salted duck yolk.
Yeah, that sounds like something Jaywin would do.
It does sound like
it's very like Asian. Love it.
Now, did you enjoy? I sort of enjoyed the pathway that you had with the bakers starting to work out what was happening. Like Loick's the one for me. So he said, for example, that it's like lamination. It was exactly lamination.
Yeah, it is.
That's what was happening.
It is very much lamination.
Yeah, it's exactly.
It's a different form of lamination
but it's
that
lamination.
everyone's used to.
Yeah, but it is lamination.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. When I say like what was going on with that challenge, they were starting to work it out. And like, because Loick's like, there you put the two doughs together, and then you roll them, and then you fold, and then you roll, and then you fold. It's like, this is like lamination. That's exactly what you're doing. But the issue I think for Loick was that he was flouring everything. And these doughs were reacting differently because he was using a lot of flour.
Yeah, but if these are unfamiliar doughs, because like it is, he's right. It is like lamination, but it's not the same kind of lamination you'd do if you were making, say, croissants or a puff pastry. They're different doughs. So my temptation would be to make sure my surfaces are floured.
Yes.
So I'd end up having the same problem that he had.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a default.
With this type of dough, like when I've actually done it in the past for curry puff, instead of using flour, what you do is you use cling wrap. So you lay cling wrap and then put the dough in between, put another cling wrap on top, and then roll it. So that doesn't really add any flour to it.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
You flatten it.
Tip for bakers at home, and I know there's a couple of you that like to bake along to these challenges. So when you're doing that, yeah, cling film, cling wrap, use that. It's a good option. Then everyone sort of got it all rolled and assembled, and like, was there anything we noticed when everyone was sort of doing the rolling and assembly?
Like Niv's face of desperation, the panicking. I'm just like, oh, relatable content.
Yes, very relatable. I thought that was really funny. Then they all put them in, and then you could just see everyone was like, well, they're in. Like Candace's reaction of, I smell baking. I think it's mine. No, it's not mine. It must be someone else's.
And well, you know what was baking? We had
Sorry,
I was going to say, what we did have baking was a cute little moment between Heather and Loick.
They're meet cute.
Like, yeah, they meet cute. You come here often?
Yeah, they come here often.
Did the ovens just not have any light or very sort of dim light in it? Because everyone seems to be doing this to look into.
I think it was just a really bright day. Again, it looked like it was a hot day, so I think it was really bright.
Yeah, maybe that was
a bit glary as well. And then you hear what you never want to hear from anyone in a technical, as Candace opens the oven and goes, "Oh, they're raw."
I thought you were going to say luster dust.
No, I was about to say, then we do luster dust.
Oh God, luster dust.
Everyone luster dustering with the best of them.
Ugh.
So much luster dust.
I know.
Oh, it's going.
Why?
Look, it has a time and place, but like to luster dust an entire mooncake feels like an awful waste of microplastics.
It does, doesn't it? You know. So let's get to the judging. So with Kathy's, they could see the spirals. More contrast was needed between the colors, though. Good filling, evenly baked, and very good flavor. Like they had of all of the people to have a lack of lamination, it was the person who told us about lamination. Too much flour. It was baked properly, and it had a very smooth taro filling, though. Camilla's, the color was great. The shape, however, was a bit inconsistent. Great lamination though. Andrew's were darker but had good layers. The internal dough though was very tight. They said that the internal wrap around the egg was very tight. The dough was still elastic and the whole thing needed a little bit longer. Heather had great spirals, great lamination, and great flavor. Niv, the dough was struggling, needed more kneading. It was tasty, but it just needed a lot more of like everything, including baking. Candace, good spirals, underbaked, good flavor. So we had from last to first, Loic, Niv, Andrew, Candace, Kathy, Camilla, and Heather wins the technical. So I loved Heather's rationale behind why she's doing okay in technicals. I have a master's in literary studies, so I can understand it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, she's as an English teacher, wanting to teach students to read between the lines. So obviously, somebody with a master's in literary studies knows how to read between the lines that aren't there.
Exactly.
Is she talking about that, or is she talking about potentially the recipes written in haiku or limerick?
The recipe is written in Futhark.
A haiku recipe, though, I'm here for. I want a technical, which is just in haiku.
3 eggs, lightly whisked. Nah, I'm not. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out.
I was leaving it to the English teacher too.
It was so close. I love the idea that one day we just present a whole technical just as a haiku. That's it, nothing else. You've got to work it out from the haiku. So, forget leaving out bake times and stuff like that. Just haiku it. So the show.
With lemon meringue.
Oh yeah. So, family-sized fruit tile tart.
Wait, hang on. I've got it.
Okay.
3 egg whites beaten with 1 cup of white sugar until stiff peaks form.
Ta-da! There we go. Baking haikus, folks. Baking haiku.
All right, my next lot of recipes I release will be written in haiku.
Beautiful. Baking haikus are here for you now. Well, that's it. It's all happening. So the showstopper. Now the showstopper said family-sized fruit tile tart, 3 hours, and you had to have a tiled design on top. It was refreshing to hear somebody just freely admit that they've practiced this a number of times. And not only has it been challenging, but they have yet to finish the bake to time. And that was Kathy, who was just like, I've yet to do this to time. It's been a real challenge, but we're just here to go for it. And I love her attitude of, no, I'm going to try.
Just dive in. Hope for the best.
What's the worst that can happen? And she was in a good spot anyway, so all she had to do was get something up that was decent, and she'd be fine.
Instead, she gave us crickets.
Yeah, as they said at the table talk, basically the 3-star bakers that we've had so far are all doing great, and Paul, Loic, and Niv were the 2 that we mentioned. So Kyla mentioned this is a challenge that is basically time management. Over everything else, it's time management. It's about getting everything done in the right sequence, in the right order, and having the time to get everything done. But then we cut to Kathy. So I'm going to start with the white chocolate ganache and the dragon fruit with the kiwi filling, using her favorite quilting pattern to make the design. However, the headline is the pecan and roasted crickets base.
Yay!
Now, in a minute, Nurman, I'm just going to let you fly on this one, but I loved making Bruno eat crickets.
I love that.
That was very cute.
He did something you shouldn't do. He caved to peer pressure. Don't do bugs, kids.
No, don't do bugs. Bugs, don't do bugs.
Do it.
Your uncle, your uncle Nurman says do bugs.
Bugs.
I love the way though.
High protein.
Yeah, I love the way that Bruno's like, they're like, hey Bruno, do you want to try them? And Bruno just very quickly went, no. And then Kyla's like, come on, Bruno. And then he ate one. It's like, I've had one. Do you want me to have another one? I've had another one. You want me to have another one? I'll have more.
He's gonna get hooked. Yeah, he's gonna be looking for his next quick fix. He's gonna be like looking around street corners for somebody with a trench coat. Opens it up. Hey Bruno, want some bugs?
Got tarantula.
Ugh.
So Nurman, the floor is yours. This bake sung to you.
Yes, this bake really. Oh, can I just say that this was one of the happiest moment of television for me. I mean, cricket. Seriously. Yeah. I don't know what to say, to be honest.
I love
Flabbergasted.
I love the fact that we've actually got someone who's gone on Bake Off and gone, no crickets. Yep,
Mhm.
it's a thing. Let's do it. But because one of the things that there's a lot of talk when we're talking about things like future foods and things like that, one of those things that's coming up a lot more is things like crickets and those sorts of bugs are a sustainable way for extra protein.
Yes.
Yeah, Kathy was saying that, like it's sustainable.
Yes, and it's a way to make sure that protein is more widely available, and it's good to see some of this stuff starting to make it into mainstream food shows, like for example Bake Off, which is the last place you'd expect to find somebody baking, using crickets. Like you're not expecting to have Bake Off and have someone, just imagine a regional British Bake Off and going up to Paul Hollywood Mary Berry and presenting them with a cricket tart, or some other garnish, and like Mary Berry would just look at you and go, I don't think so. And that would have been the end of you. You wouldn't have even finished the challenge. You would have just been escorted from the tent.
Well, okay, you're talking about the Great British Bake Off where they can't even say tortilla
No, they can't.
correctly. So
Would
what
you
do
like
expect?
Would you like to remind everyone of how they did that, by the way?
Tortilla.
Yeah, they did. It was great. What a Mexican week was a joy to behold. Anyway,
Well, there are like so the most recent season of British and this season of Canadian, a lot of cinematic parallels.
yeah,
Like it's been very warm. It's been very warm in the pavilion this season. Most recent episode of British, one of the bakers overheated and had to, take a seat. And also the amount of people foraging.
yeah, lots of
Like-
foraging this year.
Like when we get up to, I think it's Heather, like Heather's wild blueberries.
Of course, it's Heather.
Of course it's Heather.
Last week she brought her own grape, which I have had it confirmed was not wine. It was just grape.
Oh,
I asked the question and I had it confirmed. It was just grape juice. But no, I really love the fact though that we're seeing things. And again, it's one of those areas where I think Canadian does really well, which is something that's a little bit different. And they go, yeah, cool, do it. It's great. And like you saw them go very quickly from no to then Bruno tried them. And then by the time you get to the judging, Bruno's like, it's really good. It adds a lot to the base. And it wasn't like it was just there and it was like you don't notice it. Like he was saying, you notice it in a really good way.
It's like sesame, I think that was the way that it was described.
It was the crunch, basically. So Niv was going with cashew frangipan and jackfruit curd. And given that she was referencing her background in nuclear sciences, the level of pink is quite potent.
we love women in STEM.
We do love women in STEM. We stand women in STEM.
We do stand women in STEM.
What pink are we talking about? I forgot.
Niv, and the fact that she went for a little bit of pink and very much overpoured, and it was very, very iridescent pink.
Why am I thinking it was yellow? Am I
No, this was in the pastry.
It was the pastry.
Oh, yes, okay.
The pastry was super pink. The top was yellow because it was the nuclear trifle, but
Radioactive pink.
Yeah, very radioactive.
Like sweet and sour pork glaze pink.
Yes. It was very yes. Not the good char siu pork. We're talking about white person sweet and sour pork pink.
Yeah, no, we're talking like, you got a jar sauce.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mama's making canton. So that's a
It
reference
doesn't take
only
long.
the Australians are going to get. So Camilla, they cut to Camilla, who says in a very bake-off manner, "My baking is rustic, but I'm trying to make it neat." But then we cut to Andrew, who was going with a blackberry and blueberry jam, a lavender pastry cream, dragon fruit again. Big dragon fruit had a big week.
Big dragon fruit.
Now, the ode to the fireworks in Niagara Falls. Now, my biggest disappointment with this bake, I did have a very big disappointment, Andrew. Not once did you attempt to make a replica of the falls with somebody going over in a barrel or a crate. You celebrated the fireworks over the top of Niagara. Niagara Falls' most strong contribution to the zeitgeist is weird Americans falling over the edge of the falls in a barrel.
See, when they got to the judging and like they're like, "Oh, your filling's a bit soft, the curd's a bit runny," you should have just been like, "Yeah, no, Niagara Falls."
Yeah,
Of course.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm replicating the falls inside the bake. I also thought this was very much up your alley, though, Nurman, in terms of just the fact that it was a very dark bake.
I wonder whether I think a lot of the bakes this week was very much my vibe.
This is your week. You can say
This,
it.
this was my
This is your
this,
week.
this was my week, and I'm not summoning the baking god because I'm not in any competition anymore.
Doesn't matter. Baking gods, do your worst. So
Yeah, this I think it was black, wasn't it? The same with Heather's. It was kind of dark as well.
There was a very dark theme going on there. I did like the actual little pops of color the dragon fruit gave it, though. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it was giving Lana Del Rey's national anthem. Red, white, and blue is in the sky. Summer's in the air, and baby, heaven's in your eyes.
So Camilla was doing her watermelon jelly, orange mousse, papaya, and mango. Now the trip was a tribute to the Colombian cocktail, the Salpicon, which she said
I've never had it, but it sounds delicious.
Which she said doesn't necessarily have booze, and they went, but it can, and she goes, "Oh yeah, rum." It's Colombian, of course.
I really wanted to taste this one.
Yeah, I like the
sounded
flavor.
so enticing.
The flavor mixture was really and like I could see, and I don't know what the Canadian equivalency is, so I apologize for this, but I could see that combination of flavors at Boost Juice here in Australia.
Yeah.
It's a very much hi, I'm being healthy.
Jamba Juice.
Jamba Juice would be the one.
Jamba Juice.
Yes. Then we got the Loic, who finally hits the baking with booze by poaching his pears in the anise liquor. Also, we had a brulee pastry cream, but then covered in wild rosehip jam and dragon fruit.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to do the brulee and then cover it with something.
Yeah,
like you still get that like burnt caramel, so you still get the flavor. But
he even commented on that. He's like, "I'm a risk taker. I'm covering my brulee layer with another layer."
I love this for him. I love this journey.
My question is this, though.
Mm-hmm.
Just fast forward a little bit, where it was a little bit wet.
Yeah.
When you brulee something, you need sugar.
Yes.
And when you've bruleed sugar and you put moisture on top of that, it makes it very wet. And if you've got fruits on top of that layer of brulee,
it's extra moisture. Wet. There's just moisture on moisture within the sugar, which then becomes more moisture again because no, again, it's rules for risk takers. We cut to Candace, who was making a banana mousse with a chocolate crust and strawberry and starfruit and a chocolate ganache, because in her mind, it's very hard to get banana flavored things that taste good, like bananas, and she loves bananas, so she wanted to try to make something which would be good and banana flavored.
Well, yeah, like banana flavor is not banana flavor.
No, it's
like
not.
Like banana lollies or banana like milkshakes or whatever. Banana paddle pops.
It's interesting because I don't like bananas. I like banana lollies because they don't taste like banana. Like,
I love
I remember like seeing like one of those videos of like somebody, you know, who works in like a hard candy store, like that. Oh, today we're making banana taffy or whatever, and they explained that the flavor of banana comes from a different strain of banana than what is currently commercially available,
Yep.
because the banana they use to make the flavor is no longer commercially available nearly as much.
it's yeah, I've heard I had heard something about that, but I couldn't remember what it was. But yeah, no, that makes sense. There's a couple of those though with fruits and vegetables where it's like basically the flavor that we identify as X is no longer actually the commercially available flavor. You've got to there's a
I think
substance.
it was black currants is the other one as well.
Yeah, black currants. I know black currants is a thing where it's like they don't taste like that. That's why the flavor is now so defined, because it's basically an essence that's been created to replicate.
just going back to Candace's bake. I don't know how the star fruit got there. Like, I'm just again trying to. My brain's trying to work out the flavor, and it couldn't get the star fruit component because star fruit is very sour. That's just felt like the odd one out.
Yeah,
And I wonder whether that was there because of how it looked more than.
Yeah, that was
just
my
like
impression, because
dragon
it's like
fruit.
for the purposes of tiling, like it makes it like it's an easier fruit to tile because it's already a shape.
my interesting thing with that though, and it sort of goes back to what we talked about before with a couple of the other bakes, is for someone who wanted to make banana so strong, you've got chocolate, and star fruit, which feels like it would probably eat away a bit at the banana flavor. Like, because you'd have the really sweet chocolate.
I think banana, chocolate, mango, starfruit, strawberry. That's a lot of
Again, it's going around the world a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll go to Heather. So Heather did the wild blueberry curd and the lime ginger cream. Now, she was talking about the flavor pop of this one, and she's like, have you ever stuck your tongue on a 9-volt battery? That's what I'm going with.
Yeah. Like if you need anyone to like if anyone can answer the question how many licks it takes to get to the center of a 9-volt battery, it's Heather.
100% in the best possible way. Now, what I appreciated about this, of course, is that we finally had inside the shed inside the pavilion at this time of year, localized entirely at the bench, the Northern Lights. Aurora Borealis finally made an appearance.
Can I see it?
No. So for those Simpsons fans out there who are going Aurora Borealis all over this, couple of things. My first question to you is, if you really wanted to represent the Northern Lights, should she not have made something which was hamburger tiled?
Yeah.
Or steamed hams, as we know.
Should her tart have been made from steamed hams?
Yeah, it's a unicorn.
Should she, halfway through the bake, have run out to a burger shop, come back?
Yes, and changed from wild blueberry curd and lime ginger cream to steamed hams.
Delightfully devilish, Heather.
See, my other reference here for Canadians of a certain ilk, and this is one that will go over both Nurman and Aaron's head by a mile, is when I hear Northern Lights, the first thing I think of is the Simpsons Aurora Borealis joke. But the second thing I think of is Canada's answer to We Are the World, which was by their fundraising group, which was Northern Lights, which was Bryan Adams led. And it was Bryan Adams, it's Neil Young, there's Joni Mitchell's there, Gordon Lightfoot, all of these Canadian singers are there. It's a better song than We Are the World. I will just say that straight up. It is a much better song. But my favorite moment of that is Neil Young looks like everyone you've ever warned a child not to go near in a white van. He's got the wild ranging hair with a headband on, and he just looks like he'd pull up in the van and just ask you to get in. But yeah, so if you've never heard the Northern Lights song, called Tears Are Falling, it's on YouTube. I highly recommend going and watching it and going and examining this thing. It's a much better song than We Are the World. But Heather could have done an ode to that as well, like make Neil Young and Joni Mitchell and Bryan Adams in tile form, maybe.
Yeah, carve them out of dragon fruit.
Yeah, exactly. No, and again, a giant dragon fruit Gordon Lightfoot just standing on top of it would have been great. I would have loved that. But, that or again, Aurora Borealis at this time of year, at this time of month, localized entirely at that bench. And then it became one appliance got a time to shine that it never gets to see really in Bake Off. It was mandolin season, baby.
Nurman, you love a mandolin.
I know. One of my faves.
Mandolin.
Love hate.
So
I'm just afraid of losing a limb.
I've got 2 less knuckles, purely because of mandolins. But I have 2 mandolins. I have one that I bought, and then one that we found that had come with Kristy when she moved in the first place, and it's an original, like really early one. And that's the one I use because it's so much sharper than the new one. It's so much better than the new one. I get wafer thin slices every single damn time. The new one, far more of a pain in the ass, not as sharp. So you want the ones that are dangerous. Like you want the ones where you feel like a finger could be lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like the idea that you don't cut yourself with a sharp knife, you cut yourself with a blunt knife. Because you're pushing harder.
When you just like when regular food preparation is boring, you're food prepping, but you're also a thrill seeker.
Yeah, well, I mean, look,
You're a spicy baby.
2 weeks ago,
Spicy baby.
2 weeks ago in the kitchen, I had a week where every single day I did damage to one of my fingers, and it got to the point where no one would let me in the kitchen because every single day I damaged something. I cut myself on one knife, I cut myself on another knife, I banged a finger in the drawer, I got one jammed in the dishwasher moving things around because the rack had moved and it got stuck under a thing, and it was a different finger every day. One of them, the knife was so sharp, I was wiping the side of the knife and managed to cut myself on the side of the knife. It was that sharp. So, and in the end, Kristy looked at me and went, "You're not allowed in the kitchen. Go sit down. You're not allowed for a week," because I had a Band-Aid on every single one of my fingers. Horrible. So Kathy then asked the big question, which I think everyone in Bake Off has asked themselves at least once. Why do we do this to ourselves?
Look, I can tell you that right now, Kathy. We do this to ourselves because we're massive baking nerds. Yeah? That or we are really invested in getting a fancy cake plate, but mostly because we're nerds.
Well, okay. Third answer here.
Okay.
We do this because we're masochists.
That too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're working with a really old mandolin, putting your fingers at risk, then definitely.
Masochist, cake plate, nerd. It's one of the 3. That's your answer.
Forget star signs.
There are 3 types of people. 3 types of bakers. Masochists, cake plates, and nerds.
Yeah, I'll be the masochist one. Aaron's gonna be the nerd one, and then
You'll be the nerd.
It's gonna be Ella.
Oh, yeah, Ella's the cake plate.
Well, she has it. So,
she has it.
So Alan then comes over to Niv's bench to try to make her feel a lot better about life, and it doesn't go as well as he'd hope because he looks at her and he goes, "So this part, the placing the fruit, it seems like the most relaxing." And I think if Niv could have killed with a look, Alan was in trouble. It's the way she looks at him and goes, "Are we at the same bench?"
Yeah, no, like a lot of them were like Kathy, I think especially, they were stressing themselves out with like precise placement of fruit. Like Loic in his seed on seed section.
Yes, seed on seed on seed. And the fact that I've got pomegranate seeds, and he's like poking, and I'm like, that's a minute detail that's not going to be noticed, especially if everything's sinking into it. That's a detail that's minimal reward for that detail.
But he'll notice.
He'll notice, and that is the problem.
No, that's the thing. You do that.
That's
you do that when if you've got the time, because you'll know. If it's not there, you'll be all like, fucking pomegranate seed.
Because he then calls out with 5 minutes to go. He calls out to everyone, "Does anyone need help?" And Camilla immediately is like, Yes. So like sprints.
Seriously,
Because he's got
he's got
Hermione's fidget
Hermione's
spinner.
little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
So everyone looked absolutely, by the time this finished, everyone looked just exhausted. And it looked ridiculously hot. Like it just looked terrible. In terms of, we've seen it where they've made more of a deal of it, but normally they make more of a deal of it in a week where chocolate's happening.
Yeah, where something could like actually melt.
Or the
Luckily,
ice
like
cream.
as like as showstoppers go, this was quite sort of flat. It's going to hold its shape so long as the pastry's baked. It's just, as we see in judging, the cutting.
Yeah, everything else. So let's go to the judging. So Andrew, they said it looked like it could be on a magazine cover. Did it, Aaron?
Hi, Andrew.
Did it look like
Yeah,
it could be on a magazine
what's
cover?
that? What's that? Bakes on magazine covers. I don't have anything coming out this week.
Don't have anything coming out this week at all?
Oh, I might do.
All right. Maybe
Per-
Canadians should, maybe Canadians should have a look. Anyway, just keep your eye on their own socials. Just keep your eye on their own socials. So great use of, like they said, by the way, a phrase I never thought I'd say in Bake Off, where they said it's a great use of nature. The filling was a little bit soft. The dough was delicate, but needed more structure. The lavender that was used very well though, which is good because the lavender a lot of the time in Bake Off is people's undoing because it gets very, as we said last week, gets potpourri.
yeah, lavender's great. You use it correctly. You use it like conservatively enough, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, use enough so people are still like, I could do with a little bit more. Heather, they said it was a good replication of the Northern Lights. Again, Principal Skinner disagrees.
I mean, this was still an unforgettable luncheon.
Yes, it was an unforgettable luncheon, and Bruno wanted more tiling. Curd was dripping. The ginger and lime was good. They said a bit more time on the curd would have made it though amazing. The flavor was, however, great. Camilla, it looked vibrant and sunny, but outside the fruit was actually dripping over there. Gives me the idea of like how hot it was. That fruit that was like standing, the rest of it, the bits over the edge had like sagged over the edge of the crust. I'm like,
Was that supposed to be like a sun?
Yeah, it's clearly warm because like the bits over the edge had like gone, no, not holding this.
No, I'm talking about the Camilla's
the bake. Yes,
design was supposed to look like a sun.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They liked the concept. The flavor was excellent, and the mousse added lightness, but they did say the crust was underbaked. And that was the thing you could see when they showed the fruit that was sagging over the side, the crust looked very blonde. So Kathy's, they said it was a strong, iconic quilt pattern, great knife skills, good use of time, set well. Bruno wanted a little bit more acidity. However, the ganache worked really well. And then Bruno got a pun. We got a Bruno pun, everybody. We've been waiting for it. It bugs me to say this, but the crust is so good. Oh, how we laughed. Loic, they said, was intricate, well thought out. The filling, however, was very soft. The top layer was dripping through. Interesting flavor, just needed to set a bit more. And that's where, again, what we said before about Loic and time management being really early possibly played into that. Niv, good color combination. The fruit, however, was sinking into the filling, which is one of the only things they said before this challenge started. If it's not set properly, you'll see fruit sinking into the filling, and then Niv's fruit sank into the filling. The crust was firm, but the jackfruit was running. The middle needed more time, but the raspberry flavor in that crust was really good. Candice, the design was spectacular. The crust was a bit uneven. It had some thick bits, some thin bits. It was firm. The jackfruit, it was firm, but the layers were very clear. The base tasted good, and the mousse was full of flavor, and they said it was a great job. So then we're going to have conversations over who was going to be star baker and who was going home. I kind of thought this was a fairly straightforward week.
I agree.
Like Kathy doing that crust and having it work in particular, and like Kathy's bakes have been solid. Like last week was obviously great for her, and then this week she just continued.
And like she's the only baker I can think of that's made a judge cry. Normally it's the other way around.
Yes, exactly. So it's nice to get one back. So, you know, the way that, like, again, I think she's in the middle of a nice hot streak, which is good. You want to see that. You want to be on those sorts of roles. As you both know, momentum is kind of a thing inside there, in terms of if you're having a good time of it, if you can keep that going, it at least keeps your motivation up to keep pushing. You know, rather than having a couple of them being a bit ho-hum and you're like, well, what am I doing? So, and unfortunately, the time was up for Niv, which obviously, you know, we'll always have Vegemite.
You mean yeast extract spread?
Yeast extract spread. We are going to have Niv on to talk about that a little bit more, as she has already alluded to in her stories in week 1 about the trip to Australia, which certain individuals might actually be involved in, not naming anybody.
Yeah, I may or may not be part of that narrative.
May or may not be part of that. Yeah, exactly. But look, we're really looking forward to talking to Niv. I got the feeling that she would have liked to have gone a bit further. She was quite happy with the idea of going home. I think she was quite contented with what she's done. Also, by the way, follow up to that, I did get a confirmation from Kyla this week that she loves Vegemite, and she used to, when she was younger, eat it with a spoon.
Oh, madness, Kyla.
So, which we don't
Not
even
with
do.
a spoon.
Yeah, we don't even do that. So yeah, like I asked, because I said to her, I went, you were middling on Vegemite. What was going on? I did get a confirmation this week that she does love Vegemite. So she's like, I am a massive fan. So, but like, obviously Niv's, you know, she's done well in there. She had a good first week. She's been solid all the way through, and she's done bakes that mean a lot to her.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. If she can sort of walk out of there and say, you know what, I did my best. I did things that were significant to me or meant something to me. You know, what was it? Her pide was inspired by her husband's favorite dish. So
Kerala,
yeah.
where she's from in India, that region. We got those spices and stuff like that the other week. So she's represented like who she is in food. Like, we got the nuclear stuff as well in that. So
we love women in STEM.
Women in STEM. Like, she's done a really good job of that. But I think overall, again, another really solid week. Some really good, as we said, like, not massive, oh my God, this is amazing moments, but you get just a lot of really cool little, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's really cool. And it builds up to just a really nice flowing show. I don't know what you two thought, but I thought it was just a really nice, even flowing show.
It was a nice episode, I think. Quite varied in terms of, you know, what they do, and yeah, I thought it was actually quite exciting.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, no, good episode, and I'm enjoying the season so far. I think the quality on Canadian is just great. Like, they always get such interesting people with just like interesting perspectives. It makes me want to visit Canada again.
It doesn't dip. There's no dip ever. It just hums along as a very good, very solid show with people doing really interesting things. So, and I'm absolutely thrilled that I've been able to get both of you on to talk about it. So, plug away before we go. And Nurman, we'll start with you. Plug away anything you got to plug, just you in general.
I don't know what to plug. I mean, I'm just doing me.
So,
but yes, I'll be continuing with the baking through the alphabets. Hopefully, at some point next week, it will be the letter R. And yeah, that's me, Nurman.bakes.
There we go, Nurman.bakes.
So you'll just be going to Red Rooster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Aaron, you got nothing going on. You got nothing happening at all.
Well, no. So on, I believe it's the 26th of October, the next issue of Better Homes and Gardens magazine drops, and I have 8 recipes in that one. The theme is Aussie Christmas, which basically translates to, like, this is something you would have bought at a milk bar in the 90s, nostalgia, but then turned into other things. So there's like a giant iced Vovo as a tart.
Yes.
There's Lamingtons, but make it passion fruit. Yeah.
there's a range of stuff. So go check all that out. You know, again, you'll be able to find him on the socials and check out his reels. They're brilliant. I love his reels.
Oh yeah, my Cowboy Bebop reel that I put out a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, it's his reels are fantastic and excellent and genuinely wonderful. Thank you both of you for joining me today. It's really good to have a couple of Stunt Kristies. Kristy will be back next week. Some people may have heard the ghost of Kristy possibly in the background. Who knows? I think she's in the island where she's at.
She's astral projecting.
She's astral projecting occasionally. You might, if you listen carefully, you might hear her in the wind. But until next time, I'm still Chris, and
We're still Kristy.
We're still Kristy.
You're both still Kristy, and we'll catch you all later.
Bye.